All right, we are live.
Welcome, and thank you for attending the February 16th CTE committee meeting. My name is Mike DiGiacomo, and we are joined today by CTE committee members, guest speakers, staff, along with members of the public. On the agenda today is an update on the CTE committee plan due to the Accountability Implementation Board on March the 15th, 2023, and a presentation by Brandon Butler and Kirk Murray on the services provided at the local career centers. And with that, I'd now like to turn the meeting over to our CTE committee chair, Myra Norton. Myra?
Thank you, Mike. Hello, everyone. Good to see you all. As Mike shared, we've got a full agenda today. We're going to start with Bob Lehrman and his team have been working fast and furiously in terms of drafting the implementation plan for the CTE committee. And so Bob will give us an update, and then we look forward to hearing about the great work of workforce development boards across the state. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Bob to start to talk about the work that has been done and that is in front of us to get our draft implementation plan ready. I think it's really important for us to just remember why we're all here. And this is really about a pretty dramatic rethinking and redesigning of the way we deliver career and technical education to students in the state of Maryland. So Bob, I'll turn it over to you and let you talk folks through where we are.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Myra. And excuse me. I want to reiterate that it's an honor for me to work with the committee on such an ambitious project to widen the routes to rewarding careers through apprenticeship and in some cases other industry recognized credentials. So far we have created an early draft of some of the sections that we promised. The first being, why are we doing this? Why have the high school level of registered apprenticeship? So it's sort of a broad look at why apprenticeships can be important for young people. We then have a section clarifying the blueprint objectives. There had been a few different versions at different points in time in terms of law, in terms of Kerwin Commission activities. And we've written a section on that was aided by interviews with state legislators who were part of that process, and to try to capture their vision as well as the underlying text. We then have a section on what's the current status of occupational preparation. We wrote that before all the interviews were completed. We have engaged with almost all the CTE directors of all the counties in Maryland, and with even some teachers and students about the existing CTE situation, as well as looking at other aspects of the occupational preparation of Maryland students. So we have a section dealing with that. The fourth section, which we have drafted, but I'm not sure has yet been circulated, is a section on other comparable plans, operations, actually, other programs, including some internationally, especially in Switzerland and the UK, and some here, especially the state of Wisconsin's youth apprenticeship program. So what have we learned from those programs and those systems? The fifth section deals with how can we restructure the CTE curricula. And we, in apprenticeship, as you all know, there is the work-based learning component, which is usually the vast majority of the hours that apprentices learn through. And there's also related instruction. And one of the advantages of having the apprenticeship start in high school is that the high school CTE classes, which are already given, will not add to the cost of delivering a registered apprenticeship because some of this CTE, RTI related training and instruction is delivered in high school courses. So our interviews were certainly relevant to how that can be accomplished. And we have a section on that curricula issue. The sixth deals with the key elements of any apprenticeship system, especially youth apprenticeship systems. And it goes through everything from branding to recruitment of employers, to skill standards, to evaluation, possibly to even endpoint assessment of the apprentices. And it also talks about what are the key things that need to be done first. The list is long for a really robust apprenticeship system, but we try to highlight the key things that need to be done right away. We've now started working on the last few sections, which include how do we actually stimulate the apprenticeship offers, both from public employers and from private employers. The second being what is the role of the different groups, including the still standards group and the teams the expert review teams, the teams that are determining what are the relevant industry recognized credentials. And then we are going to be laying out some ideas for budgeting. What would all this cost if you wanted to do it right? How can you phase in some of those costs? And finally, how do we assess how the system is doing? Is it doing what we want it to do? What kind of data do we need? And so these last sections we are working feverishly on, and hope to have a draft of those in about a week. So what we're doing is presenting a draft written discussions of all these issues. And of course, the committee will have to weigh in on what they like and what they don't like and what's missing, and maybe what should be removed. But we view our role as helping the CTE committee as much as possible.
Thank you so much, Bob. And to expand on the interviews that Bob mentioned, currently we have conducted 51 interviews, representation from every corner of the state. Over 23 hours of interview time has been conducted. As you can see from this robust list, we have really tapped into anyone and everyone that is impacted by CTE programming and apprenticeship opportunities. So we're getting a great picture of how this looks currently throughout the state, and learning a whole lot from everyone that we're interviewing, not only about their specific field, but also about their ideas and their vision for what we can create together in this first phase of our implementation plan. And speaking of phases, I'll pass it to Molly.
Great, thank you, Ally. Just wanted to introduce myself, Molly Mesnar, Deputy Director of the CTE Committee, and I have just recently returned from maternity leave. So for any of our super fans, you haven't seen me since October, but I'm back. And very excited to be here. The work that Mike, Ally, Bob, and his team and the CTE committee members have put together over the last couple of months while I've been out is phenomenal, and we're in a really good place. So just timeline wise, just kind of want to remind everyone where we've been and where we're going. Really over the last 6 months, the CTE committee was really formally formed. We got our funding as well as the members being appointed and established. We've held, I think this is our 4th public meeting to date, so almost a meeting per month since the committee's been officially established. And, a lot of these meetings are really to kind of lay the groundwork for the CTE committee members and members of the public of, what's the state of CTE across the state? What's the state of apprenticeship? And, what are we going to be really looking at as a committee? So in this timeline here, I also just kind of want to talk about the big piece that we've been working on with Bob and his team is the drafting of the implementation plan, which is due March 15th for the CT committee, but also all the other entities that have a piece of the blueprint. So all the local school districts and other state agencies. We all have this report due March 15th. And but the AIB has kind of broken up these implementation plans to be more of kind of like a 2-year, 5-year plan. So more of a phased approach. So basically this first phase, the first plan is broken up into 2 parts. So for our report that's due this upcoming March 15th, it's really going to be focusing on fiscal year 22 to 24. So that's kind of talking about what we've done over the last year and what we're going to be doing through fiscal year 24. So the next year and a half or so. Obviously, and Bob kind of talked about this with the outline there. A lot of what is going to be in our report is going to be, the bigger picture. What are we going to be doing over the next 10 years? So it's not going to be exclusive to that, but a lot of the actual, what are we going to implement is going to be focusing on, the next year and a half. And then the second part of this implementation plan will be due next March. So that's going to be focusing on, fiscal year 25 to 27. So that'll take us through the first 5 years. And then the second phase plan will be due mid 2027. And that is going to be covering, I think, fiscal year 28 through 2032. So, all of that to say, I think the AIB, certainly recognized, and we certainly recognize that there are many pieces of the blueprint that really need to be phased in over time. Many pieces are contingent on other pieces being implemented. And, really nothing is etched in stone. Everything is all about the progress that we're going to be making and really about showing that. So, I just say that with respect to, when we release our plan, we're going to be welcoming feedback and thoughts and so forth from the public. And I just want to let you all know, we've got every year, even we can be updating the plan. So, nothing's set in stone, and we're really just going to be focusing on phasing and really looking at the progress that we can make year over year. So that's all I have to say.
Thanks, Molly. I think now we can turn it over to both Kirk and Brandon to talk about local workforce boards and the really important services that they provide. At our last meeting, we talked about Maryland Department of Education and the services there. And what we'd like to do now is kind of talk about the career centers and the services provided by them. So Brandon, I'm going to turn it over to you and Kirk. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike and Myra and the committee members and staff. As Mike said, my name is Brandon Butler. I am very fortunate to be the executive director of the Maryland Workforce Association. And we're going to talk to you today about the local workforce development boards and how they, respond to local workforce needs, as well as, as everybody knows, the workforce boards play a very critical role in the implementation of the blueprint. And so we'll talk a little bit about kind of the day-to-day and also some innovations that our local workforce boards currently have in the state of Maryland. And so, Allie, if you can hit the next slide. There we go. So we're going to talk about Maryland's workforce development experts. These are local folks on the ground, day in, day out, that are serving the needs of both the job seekers and the businesses in the state of Maryland. So if you can hit the next slide. Awesome. So there are 13 local workforce directors, local workforce boards, and local directors. And that's really what the Maryland Workforce Association represents, all of the local workforce development boards throughout the state of Maryland. And as you can see, there's some that are broken up into regions: Western Maryland, Garrett, Allegheny, Washington County, Susquehanna, and Cecil and Hartford, Upper Shore and Lower Shore, Southern Maryland. And that's really intentional. That this is really based off of WIOA and the requirements of the federal act, that these local areas through the Governor's Workforce Development Board are certified. And so these are the folks that are meeting local workforce needs, again, on a day-to-day basis. If you can hit the next one, Allie. So you may know these boards by other names, and so these are representatives of the 13 boards there, all the way from Anne Arundel Workforce Corporation or Development Corporation in Anne Arundel County, of course, with Kirk, as well as the Tri-County Council of Southern Maryland. As you can tell, there's also diversity in the way that these organizations are organized. Some are local county government entities, such as Carroll Workforce and Howard County Workforce. Others are nonprofits, such as Employ Prince George's and WorkSource Montgomery and Arundel Workforce Development. Others are more of a kind of a configuration of a partnership with local elected officials like Western Maryland Consortium. Next slide. One of the things that we did, and that whenever I was at the Maryland Department of Labor was very pleased to help with the kind of kickstarting again of a professional development training called Raising the Bar. And we have had a fantastic turnout for these events. So much so that, quite frankly, we're running out of options for spaces now. So back last year, this was our first event at Maryland Live Casino. And so what we're looking at in the upcoming year, September 12th through the 13th, we'll be back at Maryland Live once again. We had about 700 or so participants last year, all coming together as one workforce system. No differentiation between locals and local workforce areas in the state, and our friends at Doors, or apprenticeship sponsors, or U.S. Department of Labor folks. We all came together as a system to learn together, to look at innovations that we have as a system, and there's been a lot of them. And so if you have an opportunity to spend some time with us, again, September 12th and 13th, please come out and do so. I'm sure you'll enjoy the time of learning that we all do. And so with that, it's my pleasure to introduce Kirkland Murray, and we're going to advance the slide. Kirk is one of the local workforce development directors, and if you can see both he and Mike in this picture. And so we're going to talk about what a local workforce development board is. Kirk?
Thank you, Brandon, and thank you, everyone. Thank you for inviting us to come and share with you a little bit about the importance of the local workforce development system that's led by the local workforce boards in those 13 different workforce areas. I kind of say that there's actually 14 workforce boards in the state of Maryland because the governor's workforce board, even though it's at the state level, is also a workforce board. And it does a lot of the same things that we do at a local area. We just take it down to the local area and really focus on the workforce needs of that local area. As Brandon mentioned, we all set up differently. Some of us are part of county government. Some of us are separate nonprofits. Some of us fall under like the Tri-County Council, organizations and things like this. But the thing that we do have in common is that we're the boots on the ground, working with both county and local residents to make sure that they have the skills that they need to start, transition, and advance on a career. And then working with businesses to make sure that they are able to attract, retain, and upskill their existing workforce to stay competitive in a global economy and continue to grow here in the state of Maryland. So we've been very successful over these years in working with the governor's workforce board to making sure that what we're doing is in line with what's happening at the state level. Next slide, please. So the workforce development system is made up of multiple partners. Some of these are mandated partners by the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act. That is the federal legislation that governs workforce development throughout the nation. So it's a combination of the local workforce development organization, like in Anne Arundel County, it would be Anne Arundel Workforce Development Corporation, the Maryland Department of Labor. They're in there for Wagner Pizer, giving direct services to individuals to be reemployed. So a lot of the individuals that are coming in, that are on unemployment benefits, they're required to engage with the Maryland Department of Labor to take trainings for that staff to work with them to help them to get the skills or get their resume or whatever, or connect them to job opportunities. The Maryland Department of Labor is also a partner under UI. UI is a partner of the workforce development system. In Maryland, vocational rehabilitation is run by the Division of Rehabilitative Services. That is a subset of the Department of Education. Many of you all may know them as DOORS. They are a required partner. Our community colleges, they are a partner in the system, the public school system, economic development, other county agencies. For example, Community Action is a required partner. Community Action is an organization that is the anti-poverty organization. They work with individuals and provide wraparound services that help individuals to move out of poverty. They do things, many of them run Head Start programs. They run rental assistance program, electrical assistance program. So those wraparound services that are important. We by law, our workforce board has to be made up of 51% businesses. In Anne Arundel County, we have picked businesses that align to the industries that are in high demand and high growth in the county to make sure that they have a voice of what services we're providing and making sure that we're helping them to build a pipeline of skilled workers. So it is a system of multiple partners. The local workforce board governs those partners. There are things that the board is charged with doing. For example, we're in the process of updating our local plan. Every 4 years, we have to do a comprehensive plan that looks at labor market data, look at the needs of the county, but also talk about how all these partners are going to work together as one system. Every 2 years, we need to do an update on that. We're in the process of doing that update. I believe that in May, we have to submit our plan to the state, which then will go to the governor's workforce investment board for final approval. The one thing that we all have in common, no matter how we're set up or what we do, is that we're all overseen by the local chief of elected official in our area. For example, in Anne Arundel County, County Exec Stuart Pittman oversees the local workforce development system. He appoints the members to the board, but he's ultimately responsible for the workforce development system. And some of the other areas that the county commissioners are the ones that are the chief elected official that oversee the workforce development system. So this is really to show that we are working as one system, an aligned system. We're working together. We're not competing. We're working together to make sure that we have comprehensive services that meet the needs of that local area when you're looking at helping job seekers and helping businesses. Next slide, please. So some of the services that we offer for businesses, as I mentioned, our primary customer there are businesses. All of us are demand driven. So really looking at the needs of businesses, we all feel that if you don't know what businesses are looking for and what their requirements are for a skilled workforce, then we cannot prepare our job seekers for job advancement. So really what we do in a local area, we focus on several services for businesses, everything from sector partnerships. So where we get a group of businesses within a industry to come together and really talk about what their workforce needs are. What are some of the challenges they're having? How do we build a pipeline of skilled workers for that area? For example, in Anne Arundel County, we've identified 5 industries that are high growth industries for our county. We call them HITCH. It's healthcare, IT, transportation, construction, and hospitality. So when we select members to be on our local board, they come from those 5 industries. And then within those 5 industries, we've created a collaborative for each of those industries. That is a group of businesses within those industries, from those industries. Some of our collaboratives have sub-collaboratives. For example, in healthcare, we not only have allied health, we have home health care. We're looking at setting up a dental collaborative. But what the purpose of these collaboratives is to really be that voice to govern what happens in the local workforce development system to meet the needs of those industries. 9 times out of 10, it's about how do we build a pipeline of skilled workers. But sometimes, for example, in our hospitality, right now we're working with Visit Annapolis and Anne Arundel to do a campaign to educate people about the jobs and the career opportunities in the hotel industry. So the projects that these collaboratives do can take many forms, but most of them are about doing training, bringing new people into the industry, getting them the skills that they need, and then connecting them to jobs. But when we connect them to jobs, we continue working with them to move them up a career pathway within that industry. We have a whole section both at the state level, at the Maryland Department of Labor, and at the local level of business services reps that go out and do job postings and recruitment and placement events. So, some of you all may be familiar with the Maryland Workforce Exchange. It's a state database where it does a matching. It's almost like a match.com. Businesses can put their job orders in. Individual job seekers can put their resume in. So the job seekers can go in and look at the business openings and apply for those. And the same thing, businesses go in there, find job seekers. So one of the things that mainly the state staff do, they put in job openings into the Maryland Workforce Exchange. But a lot of us, we do hiring events. We can do these as industry hiring, specific hiring events. For example, the Maryland Department of Labor's veterans staff, they're doing a hiring event in March over at Fort Meade. This is for IT industry. So we have a group of IT businesses coming there. They're looking for workers. We can do individual in Anne Arundel County, Southwest being at BWI. Yes, BWI Airport is in Anne Arundel County. We've let Southwest take over our whole career center. They've come in and doing recruiting events where they invite people in, they screen them and offer them a job right there on the spot. We also can do them out in the community. We also do it for other targeted populations. For example, in April in Anne Arundel County, we're going to do a hiring event for high school seniors who have said that they're not ready to go to college. They're not looking to go to college right now. They want to go into the workplace. So we're bringing businesses in for them to meet with. We also provide them labor market data. This has been a very valuable tool to the business community so they understand what's going on in their industry. One of the ways that we use this is to let businesses know what some of their competitors are paying wage-wise as far as the industry. I mean, there's been many times that we've met with a business and they're saying that we can't keep people. And then we ask what they're paying them, and then we provide them data showing that their competition is paying a lot more. So that's why they can't keep people. So providing that labor market data. Retention and downsizing. During COVID, we did a lot of this. We had layoff aversion. We worked with businesses to be able to offer them grants to be able to hold people on. If a business is downsizing, we want to get in there as soon as possible to help the employees that they're letting go to connect to employment as quickly as possible. This helps that job seeker or that individual to be able to get employment right away and limit the amount of time that they're on unemployment benefits, but it also helps the business because it reduces their costs. If we can get someone connected to employment before they leave or right at the same time they're leaving that job and don't have to go on unemployment, that business it doesn't take a hit on unemployment. And then one of the tools that we all love and that really helps us to help businesses upskill their workforce is incumbent worker training. We offer a program where we can reimburse a business up to 50% of the cost for them to upskill an existing worker. For this program, what we'd like to see is that individual that's being upskilled will move to a higher level, have more job duties, and also have an increase in their wages. And then if by that person moving up creates a vacancy in that company, that allows our business solutions team to come in and help the business to recruit someone to fill that vacancy. So we bring, what we really look at is what value added are we bringing to businesses? And what we really like to say is that we want to help businesses save time and money in getting the right candidate for their position so they can continue to grow here in the state of Maryland. Next slide, please. On the other side, we work with our county residents that are looking to either gain employment or advance in their employment. So what the value that the local workforce development system brings is that we have dedicated, knowledgeable, committed staff that are working with individuals to do career advising. This is looking at someone and really understanding what career they're looking to go into, what aptitude, abilities, and skills they have, and how do they align to that career. A lot of times it's just helping someone to be able to look at those transferable skills. They were doing something at one time and now they're looking to do something else. How do those skills transfer? Making sure that they have a good resume, making sure that they feel comfortable interviewing, teaching them new tactics and new tricks in interviewing. But then if someone does not have the skills to go into an industry, that's where we use our funding to do occupational training. Now, most times we don't do the training. There may be some basic trainings like Microsoft training, soft skills training, things like that we may offer. But a lot of the occupational industry recognized credential trainings, we partner with the community college or other training providers to provide that training. One of the new things that's coming along in workforce development is that businesses are willing to train someone. So this is that work-based learning. They're willing to take the time to say, okay, this person has the right attitude. They have a lot of the competencies that we're looking for, but they're missing this little bit hands-on experience. So we're willing to take them and train them into that. And what we could do is we can offer a business what we call an on-the-job training grant, where depending on the size of the business, we can offer anywhere from 50% to 75% of the wages of that individual while they're still getting that training. We work with the business to come up with a training plan to really identify what are those skills that they're going to gain, look at how long it's going to take. And then again, based on the size of the business, if it's a small business, we can reimburse them up to 75%. And medium size or large business, it'll be up to 50% reimbursement. One of the values of working with the workforce development system is that we really identify barriers that individuals may have to employment or training. So this could be transportation, this could be childcare, this can be a criminal record. So we try to mitigate those barriers up front to really give them the resources to overcome those barriers. Or, for example, like a criminal offense, we teach them how to really talk to the business about that. Some businesses may be concerned about that, but we talk to them and teach them how to talk about their charge and how they're looking to now better themselves. There are also tools that we have. The state of Maryland offers a bonding tool for businesses. So if someone has a criminal record and the business wants a little bit of insurance, the state of Maryland can do a bond for them. Job placement, a lot of us have what we call job developers on our staff. Those are individuals that take candidates that are ready to go, that have gotten all the skills, all their barriers have been addressed, they know what industry they're going into or what type of job they're looking for. Our job developers then go out and call on businesses that have job openings that will match to the needs of our job seeker, or have the skill, the positions that our job seekers have been trained for, and make that match, and then offer other incentives to help that business to bring that person on. And then those follow-up services. We want to make sure that once we place someone, that they are going to be successful, that they're retained in employment for at least a year. In Anne Arundel County, we have a dedicated person that we call a career progressions person. So that is someone that would work with someone and work with the business. For example, we do a lot of CNA training, certified nursing assistant. That is usually a very entry point job for healthcare. It is also a very low wage. It does not pay a family sustained wage. So what we like to do is that we work with employers that hire CNAs and the individuals that we place into CNA jobs. And in about 6 months, we notice that those individuals are starting to get burnt out in that. So at that point, we come back in and we offer upskilling training to the individual, so they can move up to maybe be a PCT in a hospital. Patient care tech in the hospital pays better wages, better benefits, and that's that next step on that career pathway. So we want to make sure that our job seekers not only get employed, but they're employed and have an opportunity to advance on a career pathway. Next slide, please. So as you guys know, everyone in the state of Maryland is talking about Blueprint. As you know, that the law requires that $62 per registered student in a local school system from K to 12, $62 needs to go over to the local workforce boards to do career counseling program. This is for us to provide career counseling for 6th graders through 12th graders, to make sure that they have the skills to either go into college or directly into the workforce. Our primary function is going to be working with 6th through 10th graders to make sure that once they're deemed CCR ready, college and career ready, that they can go on to a post-CCR pathway. That could be advanced classes, your AP classes. That could be dual enrollment at the community college, or that could go into a CTE program or a registered youth apprenticeship. Our job is to make sure that those kids are ready for those pathways. So what we're going to be doing is a lot of career exploration, field trips, bringing in guest speakers, doing a lot of aptitude and interest assessments, and exposing the young students to different career opportunities, so that by the time they're in the 8th and 9th grade, they know which pathway they really want to go on. They really want to go into. If they want to go into a career that requires them to go to college, then they can be prepared to go into the dual enrollment or start taking some of those AP more advanced classes. But if they decide that they don't want to go to college right away, we want to connect them to what you guys are really working on, the CTE program. So our job is to make sure that they're ready and know which pathway they want to go on. We can still continue working with them once they're on that pathway to do career counseling. We can't pay for any of the trainings that they may go into or getting them industry certifications, but we still can work with them on that career counseling so that they can leave the high school ready to go into the job or ready to go into college. Next slide, please. So right now, I want to give you a couple examples the resources that we provide businesses, go a little bit deeper dive into the slide that I was talking about before in the services on businesses. So you can really see how the local workforce development system can work with this committee and provide assistance. Next slide, please. One of the things that's very important for you guys to know that the local workforce board, the fact that we are made up of 51% businesses and we have these sector partnerships, a lot of the things that you guys are looking at about making sure that CTE curriculum aligns with employers' needs, that's already being done at the local workforce level. We're already doing that. That's the purpose of these industry sector partnerships and engaging businesses so that we know what the skills are that the businesses in our area need. So we could be your partner in doing those type of things. We already do that for Perkins. The Perkins plan that the school system and the community colleges have to present, they have to be signed off by the local workforce boards. WEOA requires that. They have to be signed off by the local workforce board saying that what you're teaching is in line with the needs of employers in this local workforce area. So sector partnerships is a way. So if all the local workforce boards had sector partnerships set up, they could do a lot of this work that you guys and support you guys in the work that you're doing to make sure that the CTE curriculum aligns with local needs. Next slide, please. So we really look at one of the things about our local workforce boards is that we're very flexible and nimble. We move with the changes in the economy. On March, I believe it was March 16th, 2020, when the pandemic hit us. Besides closing down, we had to figure out how to deliver services virtually to our job seekers, but we had to figure out what do we need to do to help businesses to downsize and to make sure that we're connecting individuals to unemployment. On the flip side, come, I guess around July of 2021, when we started opening back up, we had to come up with services to help businesses to reconnect with the employees that they may have let go and to continue to attract new employees. So a lot of my colleagues throughout the state, they came up with very innovative programs. In Montgomery County, they came up with the GROW Grant. This was giving funding to local businesses that were looking to hire candidates. They were supporting them. They were giving them up to $10,000 for full-time employment. So, and then I believe $5,000 for part-time employment with a maximum of $100K for a business. So to help them to get that workforce, to be able to bring back that workforce. Also, my colleague in Montgomery County, they invested in a learning management system that they let businesses use for free so that businesses can train their existing workforce on some basic things that they may have. So this is no cost to the businesses to be able to do that. So again, responding to that local need. I have already mentioned the services that we provide with on-the-job training. Again, this is to help businesses to bring on individuals that may need a little bit more skilling and let the businesses train those individuals the way that the businesses want them to be trained. And then I've talked a little bit about incumbent worker training. Again, this is a way to help businesses to continue to grow by upskilling their existing workforce. Next slide, please. So Brandon, you want to talk a little bit about what our friends on the Upper Shore are doing?
Sure. So Dan, the director up there, we were actually in a meeting with Secretary Wu recently, and he had mentioned this program that, again, back to Kirk's comment about responding to local needs. And as many of you know, there are a number of communities right now that are looking for those first responders and trying to make their way, kind of work their way through the labyrinth of, do you hire folks? Do you invest in a volunteer community? And so what the Upper Shore workforce folks have been doing is they're working on an apprenticeship program. We are very big about apprenticeships at the local level. So he's working with an apprenticeship program with Talbot County Department of Emergency Services that will expand this year for other Upper Shore counties. The related instruction is being done at Chesapeake College. So again, pulling those local partners in to meet a local need. Dan's also met with the Fire Chiefs Association for Queen Anne's County and recently worked with them to avail their membership on really coming up with workforce training opportunities for their volunteer members. And he's also spoken with the Maryland State Firemen's Association and with Secretary Russell Strickland in really pulling this program out. I know Western Maryland faces the same issues. You know, I'm sure that the Lower Shore and some of these other rural communities in Southern Maryland also are looking at what to do with first responders. And so again, this is another way to utilize the federal funding that's coming through WIOA and to really harness it for local needs. Next slide.
So my colleague, Walter Simmons in Prince George's County, again, you know, we really work with businesses to help them get the workforce they need. We know that we also work with different targeted populations to help connect them. So one of the programs that he's created is a reentry hiring incentive program. This is to you know, for individuals who are returning to Prince George's County that may have a criminal background. The workforce development system helps prepare them and connect them to employment, but then they have this extra incentive program for businesses that would be looking to hire reentry participants or county residents. Next slide, please. So apprenticeships, my colleague in Howard County, Fran Trout, has been really pushing apprenticeships. So as some of my other colleagues, and you know, helping get the word out to their community, to their business community about the value of apprenticeships, working with them that if they're looking to set up an apprenticeship, to help them with the paperwork and doing that, and working with our partners at the Maryland Department of Labor to help businesses to coordinate the training and recruiting, and then also helping to recruit candidates to go into their apprenticeship programs. They also may use some of their funding to cover some of the costs that businesses have, like the learning portions of, they can reimburse some of the costs of the learning. They act as intermediaries in collaborating with everyone. So it's really about helping businesses to understand the value of apprenticeships and connecting them to apprenticeships opportunities, or helping them create their own apprenticeship opportunities. You know, when we're talking about youth apprenticeship, that is one of the areas that we're focusing on. Anne Arundel County currently has the highest number of youth apprenticeship programs in the state of Maryland. But you know, all of the local workforce boards are supporting youth apprenticeships in different ways. My colleague out in Western Maryland, she is now working with the school system that when they place a student into a youth apprenticeship, she may do an OJT, on the job training, where she is reimbursing 50% of the wages that business may need to pay to that student. In Anne Arundel County, to help increase the number of youth apprenticeships, instead of going business by business, we're looking at our industry collaboratives and the local board being the sponsor of an apprenticeship, so that multiple businesses can join that. And not only will we be looking at this for regular registered apprenticeship, but we will be looking at doing this for youth registered apprenticeship. So that would increase the number of apprenticeships without having to go out and trying to have so many businesses set up their own apprenticeships. We know that that is one of the downsides of apprenticeship, where it is definitely a positive way for businesses to grow their workforce. The downside is the administrative side of it and all the time it takes for a single business. So if the local boards can take that burden off of that business, and them being the sponsor of apprenticeship or working with other organizations, Former Secretary of Labor Kelly Schultz is now over at the Maryland Tech Council. She's looking at the Maryland Tech Council being a sponsor for a IT apprenticeship. So that way her members can just join that apprenticeship instead of trying to create their own apprenticeship. So there's definitely multiple ways that apprenticeships can be created and giving opportunity, especially with this group focusing on registered youth apprenticeships. So with that said, I believe, next slide, please. Brandon and I'd be glad to answer any questions that you may have on the local workforce development system.
Kirk, your picture's better than mine. I'm just saying.
I know.
You both look great. Thank you both so much. This was an incredibly helpful presentation and certainly something that the committee, we're looking at all the constituents that are involved in helping to achieve this goal of having 45% of Maryland high school graduates, participate in an apprenticeship. So the work that you all do is really right at the center of that, connecting students with businesses and local communities. So this has been incredibly helpful. Anybody have any questions? I have one that I'd love to just get your take on. As we think about what are the barriers to, driving greater availability of apprenticeships, what do you guys see as some of the major hurdles to doing that?
So again, like I said, part of it is just having enough businesses that are willing to do that. When Blueprint says 45% of graduating students should go into a youth apprenticeship, it's about having enough apprenticeships and having enough businesses that will be willing to offer apprenticeship. And seeing the value of it. So I think that's where the local workforce development system, working with the Maryland Department of Labor, we're going around and talking about the value of apprenticeships. And then again, with us be able to be the convener of apprenticeship, it takes that burden off of the business of doing this. I mean, it's not that difficult, but it is something that's time consuming and something that one more thing that a business. And when we know, yes, we have a lot of major large businesses in the state of Maryland, but the majority of our businesses are small businesses, and having that burden of, be able to submit that application and do all the monitoring. If the local workforce boards can take that off of the businesses and help them do that and do that for them, then that should allow us to increase the number of opportunities, especially for youth registered apprenticeship. I don't think anyone's against the concept of apprenticeship. I think it's new, and it's just about what does that mean to me and what is my return on investment? I mean, we're having a conversation right now with the Fort Meade Alliance and creating apprenticeships. And that's a question that the businesses ask us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, Kirk's right. I think that is, sometimes businesses are all about doing their work, making payroll and finding opportunities. And so one of the things that the local workforce system can do things like Kirk mentioned, is talking about, helping with the registration process, as well as finding all of the, there are other absolute opportunities. There were tax credits and all this other stuff that the average business person may not know about. And so this is something that the local workforce system can take on and really champion.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, because you're so right, Kirk. Like, I run a smaller business, and you don't have enough hours in the day just to do your regular. So then figuring out what is the infrastructure that needs to be in place to be able to offer a youth apprenticeship, and the paperwork, there are lots of components there that if we can figure out how to systematically offload that, like, that's not something that a business has to really think through, because we've got this packaged up through local workforce development boards, or whatever that mechanism is, that can make a real difference in terms of the numbers of businesses that are able to participate.
That, and having dedicated funding that we can use to support the wages. It's like my colleague in Western Maryland is doing. You know, of course, we cannot use blueprint money for that. But if we could have other grants that are out there, or, you know, right now, one of the things that we, you know, the workforce development system, we do have funding to do these things with, you know, with Recovery Act funds. We do have the funding to do that, but that funding only lasts until 2024, 2026. So having dedicated funding that we can help supplement some of the costs for smaller businesses, because you're right, you know, that's a burden on those businesses.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, guys. Anybody else have any questions or comments?
Yeah, I have a couple questions, Bob Lerman. So my first question is, first comment, that's exciting that your workforce board has become an apprenticeship sponsor. As you know, as a sponsor, you have to register each occupation. I wanted to know, Brandon, maybe you know, how many workforce boards are registered apprenticeship sponsors? And the second question is, what kind of recommendations do you have, if any, about simplifying the registration process?
Yeah, Bob, I'm going to have to actually check. You know, I know there's a number of folks that are contemplating this right now,
right.
In developing out their processes to make sure that they are aligning with the requirements of apprenticeship. So I know Kirk's almost there, or are you actually there, Kirk?
We're almost there. So we're not a sponsor yet. So we've been working with the state to become a sponsor for an IT apprenticeship. And, you know, there have been some hurdles, but I think most of the hurdles have been on our side. It's really about identifying. So the process that we use is through our business collaboratives. So this is really where it starts. So it's really bringing these businesses together within that industry and identifying what are the occupation that you have the greatest pain point in hiring for. And then once we identify that occupation, then find the training provider that can help do the training part and then get the businesses on board. So we're going through that process right now. So I don't really think it's a lot of hurdle in that, Bob. It's just it's a lot of coordination. It's not really a hurdle. It's just bringing everyone together. It's getting businesses to agree on, okay, these are the occupations. This is the occupation we're going to start focusing on there. And then making sure that those businesses have the number that they can hire apprentices for. So it's not really a hurdle. It's just getting.
Well, when did you start the registration process?
So we started a registration process about a year ago. So, but it's not, the problem has been the registration process. The part, in all honesty, it's been on our side. It's been us getting our act together and us still learning. I mean, you know, we're learning. I mean, one of the things I really wish the state would do, the state has done a great job in training their staff in how to set up apprenticeships. I really wish they would provide more technical assistance for local areas to do this. This is going to be one of the ways that you guys can increase the number of youth apprenticeships if the state would invest in training local areas on how to, you know, set up an apprenticeship program. So it's been our staff learning, us working with Chris McLaren's office. You know, we would submit an application. They would come back and say, well, we need you to tweak this and things like that. So, but it's been just us learning the process.
Yeah,
and
I think
that's why we don't want businesses through it. Because I mean,
right.
You know, us that have a dotted line right to Chris, can you imagine what a business has to go through? So, you know, be able to have more technical assistance about the process would be great.
Yeah, Bob, you know, you know more than any that there's also you know, a lot of this, well, all of the apprenticeship apparatus is kind of driven by federal regulation. And there are, you know, I think as Kirk mentioned, you know, that process of developing those standards of apprenticeship, as well as, you know, putting folks through Rapids and the online system, you know, it is all a process. So, you know, what better way of for the workforce system to approach this than, actually working together in developing these standards and in doing the right thing.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I had a quick question. I kind of wanted to come back to the career counseling piece and, Kirk and Brandon, what I want to kind of understand is like, what is the work that you guys have already done with youth? I know I've heard of YouthWorks. So what are you guys already doing in that space? Just to kind of give some context there.
So it depends on the local board. For example, Baltimore City has been working very closely with their school system throughout the years. And I believe they've had staff in some of their schools doing trainings and helping kids to get on a career pathway. In Anne Arundel County, we had a program called Career X. So this was focusing on high school seniors who have identified that they're not going to college, even though some of them do end up going to college. But at the time, they said they're not going to college. It is an elective program, so they sign up to be in the program. And it's 2 semesters. The first semester, we do a lot of career exploration, a lot of interest assessments for them to really identify careers. We do soft skills training with them. We do field trips with them. And then the second semester, we've been paying for them to go into an internship program. And we've had a lot of success with that. Like I said, some of them do end up going to college afterwards. Some of them go into our Future Success program, which is our summer employment program for out of school youth. And then we connect them, and that way we spend a little bit more time with them developing what they're looking for. We may put them into industry training to get them a credential and then connect them to employment. Just about all the local areas do run a summer youth program with Blueprint. This is something that we can expand upon by using that as an opportunity to get them work experience. But in Anne Arundel County, for example, for some of our younger youth that aren't eligible to work during the summer, we're going to be putting them into industry boot camp so they get a little bit more hands-on experience, a little bit more exposure to different industries. So different levels we've been working with this population. What Blueprint is just asking us to do is to one, have an MOU in place, a 3-way MOU between the local workforce boards, the local school system, and the community college for us to work together. But just for us to do a lot more career counseling for high school students.
Yeah, and the requirements, as Molly, as you know, of WIOA, have really prepared the workforce system to tackle a challenge like Blueprint. The federal legislation takes a little bit more of a focus on out of school youth than previous iterations of the Workforce Act. But we've approached this very much like in implementing the Blueprint. We've approached it very much like we did when we were implementing the Federal Workforce Act. Here's a chance that we can work together, that we can innovate, that we can find partnerships in ways that we can intersect together. And as Kirk mentioned in the earlier slide, not look at any one of our partners as an end all be all too, and finding a way that we can build innovative opportunities in our local areas. So I think that's one of the things that at least Maryland's approach that we're taking from a local workforce system is something that may not be unique, may not have, but it's something that I think we can all be proud of.
So speaking of Blueprint, I'm fortunate I'm going to leave you guys. I have to jump on the AIB Pillar 3 committee meeting where I'm sure they're going to be talking about the CTE committee.
See you soon.
You sure you want to come, Mike?
I've got 2 comments. One is, Kirk and Brandon, thanks. If anybody's interested in learning more about how to get connected to their local workforce development board. If they go to our website, gwdb.maryland.gov, and click at the top on local boards, all the contact information for all 13 boards is out there, their contact information, when they have their quarterly meetings. And if you'd like to get connected, their information is there. If not, get a hold of Molly or I, and we are more than happy to make an introduction. And then my second comment is the CTE committee is actually now employing a registered youth apprentice to support our organization from Mervo in the city. He's been doing a great job, but it's also been a learning experience for us on what it takes to actually become a sponsor. So all good stuff. Thank you very much. I turn it back over to our board chair, Myra.
Thanks, Mike, and thank you, Brandon and Kirk. Just a reminder for everyone, our next meeting is March 7th, 12:30 p.m. You can find us here on the web, email if you need to reach out, and YouTube channel as well. So if there is no other business we need to discuss, I will call for the meeting to be adjourned. You all have a great rest of your day. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you all.